Louise,
do the intro.
kick us off.
A slideshow. Now I'm nervous.
All right, everybody, we are live. As people are coming in, the numbers are coming up rapidly.
Okay, so tonight we welcome Shannon MacMillan, former U.S. Women's National Team member, as our featured speaker. Shannon played for the University of Portland, where she won the Herman Trophy for Best Female Collegiate Soccer Player of the 1995 season. She earned All-America honors from 1992 to 1995. Shannon enjoyed a career with the U.S. Women's National Team for 12 years, playing in 176 games and scoring 60 goals. She is a two-time Olympic medalist and 1999 Women's World Cup champion. She was named the U.S. Soccer Female Athlete of the Year in 2002 and was inducted into the U.S. Soccer Hall of Fame in 2016. Shannon is currently the executive director for the Del Mar Carmel Valley Sharks. So Shannon, welcome. It's good to have you.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. Oh, that's my ACL picture. Oh my gosh. And that's my all-time favorite picture right there with Clive Charles. You're gonna make me cry.
Shannon, were you at Portland at that time?
No, that was with the WSA.
Oh, wow.
Down here in San Diego, yeah.
Yeah. So Shannon, I think we all know a little of your playing history and accomplishments. You and I go back, I can't even remember when, before the Olympics maybe in 96?
It's definitely, yeah, it's definitely been a long time. And I just want to say before we really dive into this, to everyone that's on this call, I hope you guys all can appreciate who you have at the helm in Louise, because talk about a true pioneer and someone that just has the ultimate love and passion for the game. You know, she's someone that's made a difference in my life as a player and coach, and as well as most of my teammates. So I hope you guys all realize, and next time you see her, give her a huge thank you from me and love her up.
You're kind. Yeah, you're definitely kind.
You could pay me later.
Yeah. So, yeah, let's talk a little bit about your playing history, the accomplishments. You know, tell us what it was like growing up. Is Shannon the coach? Shannon the player? Shannon, and I'm so proud of you for having retired from the game as a player, as a coach, and now you're an executive director. And I loved being able to connect with you a couple of weeks ago and just talk about what it's like running a club, and the challenges that you face, which are exactly what we face every day. So tell our kids and our audience a little bit about your past and what it was like for you.
Well, I grew up playing multiple sports. You know, I played soccer, I ran track for 2 weeks, I played a little basketball, I played softball. And in all honesty, for me, it was just about being around my friends when I first started at 5 years old. Soccer, I loved the fact that at halftime you came off and had orange slices and snacks, and after the game you got treats. You know, you always got excited when you knew that one parent that brought the best snacks, and just really loved the game. And it probably wasn't until, honestly, high school for me. I know it's quite different for you guys nowadays, and not having that luxury of waiting that long. But the benefit for me was that I never had any regrets. I never said, I wonder if I was going to be good at softball. I was always known as a fast player. So, you know, softball teams would pick me because I could steal the bases, but I could never hit that dang ball. So it didn't help me much. And I found that being a pinch runner was boring. So it was easy to walk away from that. Basketball, you know, I could steal the ball and be the first one down the court, but I'd miss the layup. So, you know, would just literally throw on the brakes and wait for a teammate to dish it off to. So basketball was an easy one for me to walk away from. And track 2 weeks because I hated those short shorts. I hated how long you train for such a short race. You know, there's film of me running down, pulling my shorts down. And for me, really, soccer was the one that no matter what was going on at home, if I had an argument with my parents, or, you know, maybe I had a really bad day at school, or I did bad on a test, whenever I got to the soccer field, that just all disappeared. And I crossed that white line and it was my time. And I just found that it was such a release for me. And that I just, whenever I had free time, whether it was, you know, recess in elementary school or extra hours after school or on the weekend, I just wanted to be around the soccer ball. So I was very fortunate and blessed that soccer paid for my education. Not having the most supportive family, I probably wouldn't have even gone to college without soccer. So from the get-go, I knew that I was incredibly fortunate and blessed, and had the luxury of playing for one of the most tremendous men I've ever met in my life, being Clive Charles. And he was the coach that really helped me kind of pick my head up. I left Escondido, which is a small town in San Diego, a very shy and timid person. I would even venture to say someone afraid of her own shadow. And I got up to Portland, and Clive really helped me believe in myself. And for the first time, really started to show me that soccer offers so many ways to extract life lessons, that regardless of the level you're going to play at, collegiately, beyond, tools that are going to help you succeed in life, from teamwork and overcoming adversity, having the confidence, leadership, all the many, many tools and lessons that the game can teach us. And from Portland, I was fortunate and blessed to be picked up on the national team. Played 12 years, as Louise touched on, for the US team. And when I retired, I kind of went through this lull, and I would almost say a funk of now what? Because you go from the structure of being in a team where you know what time training is, you know what time you set up for treatment, what time you have this, meals are prepared, to all of a sudden I could sleep till noon if I wanted to. You know, what else do I do with my day? And really, how do you fill that void of that adrenaline rush of being out there with your teammates and getting in a good slide tackle on someone that you're playing with against, you know, to the crowds and the excitement of the games and all that stuff. So definitely took a couple months where I just like completely just didn't know what I was going to do. And then it was at that point that I really just did some soul searching and realized that soccer had really truly afforded me so many amazing opportunities that I wanted to give back to the game, because I feel that I was so fortunate. Clive touched my life in ways that I could never even put into words or feelings, and I wanted to try to have that effect on somebody else. So decided that I was going to coach. Actually started at UCLA with Jill Ellis for about 2 seasons. Found out very quickly that I'm not an LA girl. I am a San Diego girl. I am a little bit more relaxed in the LA scene and vibe. And out of the blue, just before my second season, or actually as the second season, we were in the middle of second season, one of the presidents for a local club down here in Carmel Valley, Del Mar Carmel Valley, she reached out and said, "Hey, we'd love for you to come down and run our girls competitive program," which at the time, the Sharks had about 25 competitive teams and about 150 rec teams. And I laughed, and I'm like, absolutely not. This youth club scene has turned into an absolute nightmare. I want nothing to do with it. And hung up with her and laughed, and I was like, you know, this is insanity. Fortunately, she called back about a week later, and she said, "Are you sure?" And by that point, I was pregnant with my son. And like I said, not really happy in LA. And so I kind of just threw out there, I said, okay, I'll do it, but here's the conditions. I'm going to come in and I want complete control of that girls program. And it's going to be about these kids and setting them up to succeed. I'm not going to care about results. I'm not going to be out recruiting from other clubs. I'm not going to be out filling these kids' heads of you're going to be the national team player or trying to, you know, out recruit the next team. I said, we're going to develop players with the mindset of, first and foremost, let's be good people. And here are the tools that are going to help you succeed later on. And she kind of was like, oh, because obviously, you know, being president of the club, she had 3 kids coming through the program too, and hung up. And I figured that would be the last I heard from her. But the next day she called back and said, you know, I jumped on the call with my board and the rest of the board, and it's a go. And I almost fell over, but it gave me the opportunity to get back home around family and friends. And I let her know this was in January. that I was expecting my son in June, and wanted to make sure she realized that I would have maternity leave and all that wonderful stuff that comes along with that. And she said, no problem, we'll work around it. And from there, at that point, being a really small competitive club, our club was financially dependent on the rec program. And after about a year of being at the helm of just the girls' competitive side, the girls' side started to kind of carry its own weight, and we were self-sufficient. And something really, really important to me has always been that a player shouldn't miss out on an opportunity because they can't afford it. Because I know I was a player that without soccer, and like I said, I wouldn't have gone to school, but even at the club level, I was a player that relied on scholarships, and I'll forever be grateful for that. So that's a soft spot for me. So after about 2 years of just being the girls' competitive director, the board asked me to take over the boys' side as well, because that was not blossoming like the girls' side. And their first question was, can you take over a boys' side? Is that possible? Like, how will they respect you or this, that? And I'm like, it's soccer. My reputation, I think in the 2 years I've been in the community and my playing background, obviously, I'm like, no problem. And from there, went from being director of competitive to overseeing our recreational program as well, and the director on our recreational side. And that's now blossomed into executive director, where I oversee the office. I've got phenomenal assistant directors on the competitive side, a really tremendous rec director. And just basically now we are at 65 competitive teams. We have ECNL on both the boys and the girls side. We still have about 120 rec teams, and really pride ourselves on still being a community-based club, but we have opportunity for everybody from a U19 rec team, because it's just a group of guys and a group of girls that just love playing together, but only want to play for 3 months in the fall, all the way to ECNL that out here, because of our lovely weather, we're essentially year round. So we pride ourselves on that. We also have a top soccer, which is a special needs team. And it's just really important to me to have the complete picture and pathway for all of our players, and to just hopefully be given back to the game.
That's fantastic stuff. We wanted to talk to you a little bit about your youth career. How old were you when you first started playing? And what was your earliest memory of joy as a soccer player?
Yeah, I actually was born in New York. I was born in Syosset, New York. Was out there until I was about 4 or 5, and then we moved out to San Diego. And that's when I got my first taste of soccer. The Godzukis, actually, let me show you this. This is from another Zoom call. This is my first ever, I don't know if it's gonna show up well. That's the Godzukis. That's my first ever soccer team. I say, it was a sign. We were purple. That's why I ended up being a Portland Pilot. But we were the Godzukis, and the Rosebuds and the Chicklets and all those fun names. And like I said, I just loved being out there with the ball and being out there with my friends. And then we actually moved back to Smithtown my 6th and 7th grade year. And I played on a team called the Huntington Boys Club, but it was a girls team. Played for Shelley and Bob Berger, and it was my first travel experience. And I just, from there, just continued to fall in love with the game. And I think a large part of that is due to Shelley and Bob and our assistant coach, Ron, because they just rolled the ball out and played. There was no pressure. There was no screaming and yelling from the sidelines or, do this, do that. It was just about fun and the camaraderie of being a good team. And then we moved back to San Diego just before my 8th grade year. Talk about a tough year to relocate, year before high school, moving into a new area. But luckily, again, this is, how soccer just kind of transcends just what's on the field. Bumped into a girl named Terry Kate, and she said, hey, you need to come try out for our team. And went to tryouts with her and got picked up on that team. And it's very rare you see this nowadays, but we were the same team from 8th grade. And the team was even in existence before I joined it, but we were together all the way through until we all went off to play collegiately. And it's still some friendships that I still have. Majority of the team did go on and play collegiately, but like I said, I think I'm always drawn to the team sport aspect, because when you have that bad day, you've got teammates to pick you up, or, if you make a mistake in the game, they're there to help cover you, or, even stuff beyond the field. I look at the national team, how much time we spent together. We saw each other through marriages, deaths, births, you know, so much adversity and stuff. And I really thrive in being able to be a part of a group that, you know, is there to support each other and help lift each other up.
Awesome. One of the questions we got was, who did you look up to as a youth player, and what things did you do on your own time to become a better player?
Great question. And I know Louise said 95 college player. You guys are probably like not even on the minds of your parents at that point. I am a little bit OLD. We didn't have a national team when I was growing up. We didn't have a women's professional league. So who I looked up to was my big brother. My brother Sean is 2 years older than me. To this day, he's one of my best friends. And you know, if it goes 2 days without talking to each other, it's like, what's wrong? You know, and I used to follow him around, whether it was out in the street playing street hockey, throwing the football around. You know, nowadays I'll be out throwing the football with my son, and the amount of people are like, wow, you could throw that thing. I'm like, perks of having a big brother. I think he toughened me up. You know, it drove him crazy that I followed him everywhere. But when it came time to pick the teams, he made sure I was always on his team and kind of the secret little weapon. You know, and he was there through my playing career. And, you know, just has always been my support. And, you know, 91 was the first year that was the Women's World Cup. I got to Portland at 92, and I didn't even know about the Women's World Cup in 91, and brought into the U20s in 93. And that's, you know, still just really small level. So what's amazing and exciting now is that, especially for all the young girls out there, is you have the NWSL, you have the national team, you know, even the MLS. And I encourage all you guys to watch games. If you can't get there physically to watch them, watch what you can on TV. But watch it as a student, not as a fan. Don't just follow the ball. Watch players positionally to the, you know, that you play, and what's their movement off the ball, what are they doing to get themselves prepared, all that type of stuff. Watch the games as a student, and that's really going to help you, because I don't think Americans in general watch enough soccer, and it's such an incredible learning tool. Something that I didn't have growing up. You know, in fairness to this date, you know, when I go out to fields, a lot of players, you know, hey, can you do this move? Can you do that move? I'm like, no, I just worked hard. You know, I wanted to nutmeg you. I got no shame in that. I wanted to nutmeg you and get the ball on the other side and fly down the side and get a good cross off. That was my game. So it's fun to see all the tricks and stuff out there, but that definitely wasn't my style. And I didn't spend hours upon hours working on those.
Well, to touch on that, what position did you play growing up?
Great question. I was always a forward. I was your typical forward who, you know, would make a run in behind and then kind of jog, maybe walk back. When I got to Portland, Clive made it very clear that our forwards set the first line of defense for us, and that wasn't going to fly up there. So I quickly got in better shape at Portland, and all the way up until 96 with the national team is when I first moved back to right midfield. So from there on, I played right midfield, but also still continued to play up top. Clearly, defending was not one of my strengths. I had the luxury of having the great Joy Fawcett play behind me, which, you know, doesn't get much better than that. So I knew when, you know, I got beat, I had cover. So to this day, Joy's one of my dear, dear friends, and I thank her often for cleaning up my messes.
So Mac, I'm going to ask you a quick question because I know Clyde's on cue here. You mentioned Joy. So in the 99 World Cup in the quarterfinals, I remember that game so well. It was against Germany. It was in Washington.
Mm-hmm.
We were tied 2-2. I think Brandy
scored 2 goals.
with an own goal.
Yes.
Foudy came out.
Mm-hmm.
You went in for Foudy. You took a corner kick. You placed it on the head of Joy, and she scored the goal. We went on to win that quarterfinal, which could have changed the whole outcome of the Women's World Cup. That was an amazing moment. Yeah. What went through your mind when you knew that here you were stepping out there to take that corner? Do you remember what it was like for you?
Absolutely. And the great part of that is, first, you know, Brandy Chastain scores an own goal in the World Cup in a quarterfinal game. And a sign of true leadership was Carla Overbeck going over to her and being like, Brandy, pick your head up because we need you and we're going to get it back. And it was, that in itself was such a pivotal moment, because we could have lost Brandy for the rest of that game. But instead, Carla gave her a little kick in the butt and helped her get refocused. And we still tease her that Brandy was the higher leading scorer for that game, even though one was against us. But again, your role within a team is going to change. In 96, I was a starter on the Olympic team. In 99, I was dubbed a super sub, because every time I came onto the field, I brought a spark of energy. And I had reporters asking me, don't you think you should be starting? And I'm like, well, obviously, if you're asking that question, I'm doing my job. But, I train as if I'm a starter and will embrace any role come game day. And so I had actually noticed often in the first half that the near post was open, and we had numerous corner kicks, but Joy was wide open on that near post so many times. And at halftime I tried to get that point across to whoever was going to take it, but it was such madness in there because it was such a tough game. And then I was getting up and I'm warming up, and I realized I'm getting subbed in during a corner kick, which I took anytime I was out there, and I was so excited. I think that's probably the fastest I ran the entire game. And I remember Tiff Milbert was over there, and I just kind of gave her a look. I was just beelining to her, and she's like, yeah, it's all yours. And, my first touch of the game, but, Louise is giving me a little more credit. I knew I just had to get it in the general area, and Joy would put it away. And to have a moment like that in time with someone that was your best friend on the team and one of my dear, dear best friends to date is just surreal. And that is, there's pictures of it, of us, running towards each other and jumping in each other's arms. And there's some of my just most favorite pictures and memories from that, to be able to have such a pivotal moment with someone like that. But Joy did the hard part, because I could hit a ball, and she knew she had to put her head on the end of it. So I just knew, because that near post was open and we kind of made eye contact, and I kind of just, it still gives me the chills. I knew I just had to get it there and it was going to be done. So credit to Joy for getting on the end of that.
Yeah, pretty special goal.
Absolutely.
Clyde, what do we have?
Yes, Shannon, it's a privilege to have you here with us here today. And I'm not sure that our community knows the rich tradition that the Pilots University of Portland has had, but you have accomplished. And one of the things that is remarkable, I go there, well, the last couple of years anyway, I've been going there in the summer with the ECNL camp. And we go to the stadium and we see those life-size replicas, picture, and it's just remarkable, Sophie Smith, and it just goes on and on and on, And fortunately, we're going to have one of our rising seniors, Camille.
I love it. I heard that. It made my day. That's the only reason I'm here.
So she's gonna go up and join that rich soccer tradition, So that's gonna be a special place and a special time for her, And I get a little teary-eyed myself anytime you talk about Clive Charles, because he's one of my favorite people as well, Many a nights we've gone out and got to know the individual, and I can safely say today that he has impacted my life and the way I approach coaching and the way I approach this game. So kudos to him, But you went to college in a different time. But can you share with some of our kids what it was like going from club to college, and how difficult the transition was for you, if so?
Yeah, and you're gonna make me cry. I said I wasn't gonna cry on these things. It's hard. You think you're fit, you think you are, adjusted and used to the speed of play, but it's a whole other level. And I think what's really important is that you need to find the right program for you. It can't be where your parents went to school. It can't be where your best friend's going, or necessarily where you've always wanted to play. You really need to take your time. Research the school, talk to the current players, make sure you know the weather. There's a lot of San Diego kids that head back east and they last about a semester and they come running back because they can't handle weather that you guys have. So it's important to do all that work. And for me, you know, I was kind of a late bloomer in the sense that I was only seen at Far West Regionals and the National Cup my junior year. And this was back in the day when you took all 5 of your official visits and nothing was decided before then. And so after my team went to Far West Regionals and won, we actually lost in the finals of Nationals, and my phone started going crazy. And I took some recruiting trips, and these coaches were promising me the world. We're going to get you on the national team. You're going to start, and you're going to score all these goals, and you're going to do this, and you're going to do that. And, you know, at the time, I was a 16-year-old from small town Escondido. I'm like, this is great. Yeah, I love it. Tell me more, you know. And I had my mind pretty much set on a school in California. And I'd taken 4 of my trips. And then out of the blue, this little Englishman, Clive, calls me and says, hey, you know, my assistant coach saw you at Far West Regionals. I wish I could do his accent. I can't. And we'd love to have you come up to Portland. And I thought, well, I got a 5th trip. I've never been to Portland. I'm in. So I went up there to Portland, and he didn't talk to me the entire weekend. And I found myself going, what's going on? Is this like a token call or your visit? You know, what's the deal? And I sat down with him about 2 hours before I had to get to the airport. And he said, okay, we've, you know, watched you interact with the team. We've talked to some of the players, and we think you'd be a good fit here. I was like, okay, that's great, but am I going to play? And he goes, I don't know. I go, what do you mean you don't know? Am I going to start? Can I get on the national team? What, you know? And he just is like, I don't know. And I'm like looking around, like, where's the cameras? Is this like candid camera, which I'm sure some of the kids don't even know what that is, thinking, you know, what kind of joke is this? And he just said, look, he goes, I can't promise you those things. All I can promise you is that you're going to get the opportunity, and it's going to be up to you what you do with that opportunity. He goes, I don't know if you're going to, I can't sit here and tell you you're going to start and score all these goals. He goes, all I know is you're looking for a home. We think this would be a good fit for you. For me, it's about the person first. And he goes, I'd rather have a roster of 20 solid kids than 1 or 2 superstars. So we think you'd be a great fit here, and all the other stuff, that's going to be on you. And my jaw, I think you could have probably heard it hit his desk, and I bit my tongue from saying, where do I sign? Because something just struck a chord in me of like, wow, this guy is legit. And, you know, at that point, he had Tiffany Milbrett there. He had Casey Keller about to leave. You know, it's just like, wow, this is someone that gets it. And so I bit my tongue from signing, and, you know, got home and told my parents. That went over like a lead balloon, because, you know, there's bigger name schools were promising me the world. And I just knew that it was Portland. You know, and it's really important, as you guys these days, is to look at the program and what it stands for. And, you know, you're an injury away from not being able to play for a year or for good. So would you be happy there if soccer was taken away from you? Is it somewhere where you think you could still thrive? You know, and just really finding that environment. And who I am as a coach today, as a person, as a mom, I owe it all to Clive, because he just, something resonated with me. And that man, you know, he was taken from us way too young due to cancer. And it's almost, he's almost one of those stories of he was too good to be true. But there's everybody that I've crossed paths with, you know, they just always want to tell me Clive stories, and they make me smile and they make me cry. But, you know, I found the right fit for me, and that made all the difference in the world today.
Fantastic, fantastic. You know, you were at UCLA for 2 years, and I think Haytham spent the last year or the last 2 years, you know. So, you know, but just compare your time as an assistant with UCLA and your time as a player at Portland. And what we're looking to get at is how much the college environment have changed from the time you were there to now. I mean, I take a look at it, and I'm just floored how different it is, you know. So I don't know, maybe Haytham can help you here a little bit, but just give us a little tip of how far the college game has come.
Well, yeah, and that's a great question. And I think a lot of it is the fact of how many opportunities out there, from Division I to Division II to Division III, all the opportunity and the scholarships and potential out there. So, you know, don't get hung up on the fact that you want to be at a Division I school. You got to make sure you can handle the load. You know, I know for me, when I took my recruiting trips, one of them was to Cal Berkeley, and I was floored that for one of the classes, it was literally in an auditorium, and you just put in your student number, and there was about 150 people in there. I was like, where's the accountability? Like for me, I wouldn't be able to force myself to go to this class, whereas Portland didn't have more than 20, 22 in a classroom. I wanted that connection with my professors, especially being a collegiate athlete where you have to miss some days because you're on the road. You know, I wanted to make sure I had that connectability. So it's, again, it's all part of doing your homework. There is a lot of opportunity out there, but you've got to really make sure that you're going to get what you need out of school. Do they have what you interest you and what you potentially want to major in? Do you want a large football type environment? I love Portland because it's such a soccer city. You go downtown and University of Portland soccer players are just superstars there, you know, and now they have the Thorns and the Timbers, and it's such an exciting, smaller, intimate environment. You know, at UCLA, it's a beautiful campus, and it's kind of tucked away in LA, and you walk on campus and you're floored, but it's massive. You have to have a moped to get around from class to class. And, you know, at a minimum, you know, and Portland has expanded since I've been there, but it's still, you know, you could have a bike or you could walk type thing. So it's kind of, again, just really doing what you want out of it. What's, you know, your personality like? Is it going to be a good fit? Do you like the hustle bustle of, you know, a bigger city like LA, or, you know, Portland, that's a quieter, sleeper town up on the bluff up there? But just making sure that it checks all the boxes for you. And I think a lot of people get caught up on, I need a Division I scholarship. Whereas, you know, other divisions are just as competitive, and you're going to potentially get the same things out of it, but maybe a better education, or, you know, there's so many variables that go into play for it. And it's going to be what's the best fit for you, not necessarily, like I said, your parents' alma mater or where your best friend's going to go. Because I had dreams of going to college with my best friend, and we were going to be roommates and this and that. And then she wasn't as heavily recruited as I was. And I could have stayed local with her, but, you know, I knew I had to kind of go spread my wings, and I needed to get out of the state of California again on my own.
Good. You know, and we're so tickled and privileged that you have stayed with the game and continue to give back to the game. I remember sitting in the rooms with Jim Gabara and Dino, and as we tracked you and watched tape and try to prepare for your games, you know, because you were a handful. But they,
come on, in a good way, though.
Yes, yeah, you were a handful. You were a handful, but even more important than how good a player you are, you know, it's you as a person and your willingness to give back to the game, and we thank you for that, Louise.
Thank you, Clyde.
Okay, so you know, watching you play in the Olympics in 1996 in Athens, you know, another memorable game. I'm probably dating myself here, right? Like I've been to the 95 World Cup, the 99.
Both of us.
Yeah, I've been like to so many of them. The Olympics, you know, winning the gold medal. Amazing. What an environment it was. Did you ever think that, was it a goal for you that you aspired to make that national team? I mean, the players that you played with were, and for me, they still are like the best. It's, you know, I knew everyone's number. I knew what position they played. I mean, I can tell you the experiences of all the matches that I have attended, but that final in Athens, the final at the Rose Bowl, the World Cup were just amazing. And to, you know, have been a part of that team with such legends, you know, what was your goal? Was that a goal for you as a kid?
Yeah, you know, and what a lot of people don't know is I was actually cut from that Olympic roster. But I'll start with growing up. I was enamored with the Olympics. When the Olympics were on, it didn't matter if it was Winter Olympics, even though I never did anything in the snow, or Summer Olympics. I watched everything. You know, I remember Greg Louganis bashing his head open on the diving board, you know, watching all that stuff. And I always said I was going to be in the Olympics. You know, and all my friends knew soccer was my sport. And I had some people that are like, that is just silly. Soccer, women's soccer especially, is not even an Olympic sport. Like, what kind of dream is that? And I just knew I wanted to be a part of the Olympics somehow, some way. I always had that dream. To this day, I mean, my son, when the Olympics are on, he's just like, oh my gosh, again, are you really watching this, Mom? But what's amazing is that 95, as we've already said, was my senior season at the University of Portland. And we made it all the way to the Final Four. It was still called the Final Four back then. And we lost to Notre Dame in triple overtime, questionable call, but we won't go down that dark alley. And shortly after that, the US team had a camp. Because we didn't have any sense of a professional league, we had to go into what was called a residency program, where for 6 months prior to the Olympics or the World Cup, we would leave our families, our livelihoods, everything, and we would all move and live together and train. And we would go on about a 4 to 5 week training, 5 days off, where we can go see family and come back. But we wanted to replicate an environment where we could grow and learn as a team. And so went into that training camp. It was actually close to my house here in San Diego. It was down in Chula Vista. And they were gonna, at that point too, there was only 16 players that went to the 96 Olympics. So keep in mind, Olympics have always been my dream. Women's soccer is now announced as an Olympic sport. I just finished my senior season, and I went into camp with probably the most confidence I'd had to that point with the national team, because I really thought this was going to be my next step. It wasn't cocky, but it was confident that I was fit. My touch was on, all that stuff. I was never a cocky player. And when I see cocky players, I want to kick them. But anyway, that's another topic. So I went into that camp, and then at the end of the 10 days, the list was posted, and it was posted of the 24 that were going into camp. And then there was 8 other spots that had a time spot, and that meant you had a meeting with the coaching staff for them to tell you, you know, thanks, but no thanks, and why you weren't good enough. And I remember looking at the 24 and going, I don't see my name. Okay, maybe it's alphabetical. No, maybe it's numerical, like every which way. And my eyes would not go down below because I just wasn't ready. And sure enough, I realized I had a time to go sit down with Tony and his staff. And I'll be honest, I sat in that meeting and I was so upset, and all I heard was blah, 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 blah. And in my mind, I'm thinking, what am I going to do now? There's no pro league. I just finished my collegiate season. I'm not ready for soccer to be over. What in the world can I do? And so I left that meeting, not having heard one word they said, and I flew back to Portland. And I told Clive on the way that I didn't make it. And so he was waiting for me in his office that next morning, and I went in there and was just crying my eyes out. I had snot everywhere. He just kept putting up fresh Kleenex boxes, and he's just sitting there listening to me. And I went on for hours, and then he's like, are you done? I said, no, I'm not. And I went on for another couple hours of how unintelligent the coaching staff is, how cruel the world is. I'm pretty sure I used more colorful descriptions that I will spare you from. And then Clive finally said again, are you done? And I'm like, I think so. And I was just wiped emotionally. And I'll never forget, he looked at his watch and he said, all right, it's 2:30. You have 24 hours to mope and feel sorry for yourself. And this time tomorrow, I'm going to see you out on the field, and I'm going to work you twice as hard as you've ever worked. And I looked at him, and in my mind, I'm like, okay, this is my rock. This is my everything. And now he's lost his mind. I'm like, Clive, there's 24 women moving to Florida. They have to cut 8. How in the world are you saying I should be training? And he just said, look, you're going to have an opportunity. And the difference is going to be, what do you do when that opportunity presents itself? Are you going to be sitting here crying and feeling sorry for yourself? Or are you going to be ready to take advantage of it? And in fairness, I left his office and I was like, oh man, now Clive's lost his mind. I don't know what I'm going to do. You know, my everything's lost his mind. So I spent that night looking for anyone that would listen to me complain and moan and what. And then the next day, you know, I just woke up and just said, you know, Clive's never steered me wrong. If that guy asked me to jump, I would ask him how high and how many times. And so I went out there and started to work my tail off. And I don't think he brought the ball out the first week. And shortly after that, in February, at that point, the national team players really just made a per diem. And we're talking about maybe $15 a day. So you would, you know, pitch in with your roommate and go to the grocery store and, okay, between the two of us, we have $30. We can get a dozen bagels. You know, how could you make it stretch? And the leadership, some of the amazing people that Louise has touched on, you know, Michelle Akers, Karen Gabara, Julie Foudy, they went to US Soccer and is like, hey, you know, it's kind of hard to find a job that's going to let you leave for 6 months to go train and be an Olympic athlete. So we think US Soccer needs to start paying us. And US Soccer, they weren't too happy with that. And the team was supposed to go down to Brazil in February. And US Soccer said, that's fine, we'll just take a second team, because the leadership said, we're not going. So my phone rings. And having played with that team for a few years and knowing that it was like a sisterhood, I remember calling Foudy and being like, Jules, you know, my phone just rang. What do? I absolutely support everything you guys are doing. And if you say we need to be unified, I will not go. And Foudy being Foudy, she just said, Mac, you get your butt on that plane, because you deserve a chance just like we are having. And went down to Brazil. And that was when Tony first said, hey, we need a right midfielder, you know? And in fairness, if I hadn't been cut at that point, I probably would have laughed at him and said, no, I'm a forward. I don't run up and back like that. But I knew that, you know, having someone like Christine Lilly, best left-footed midfielder in the world, you know, who better to learn from? So at that point, willing to do anything to make the team, I said, sure, I'll try it. Quite the learning curve. By the time we finished in Brazil, the women had kind of resolved things with US Soccer, so I was given another plane ticket back to Portland. But shortly after that, I was brought in. They had floaters that, you know, 2 players would come in every few weeks. And one of the times I came in as a floater, they just said, all right, we need you here. And I stayed. And by the time the Olympics started, I had not only made the roster of 16, but that I was a starter. And by the time the Olympics finished, I was actually the leading scorer with 3 goals, one of which being the golden goal against Norway in the semifinal, and one of them being the first goal in the final against China. So it was incredible. And I know that that Olympics meant an awful lot to every single one of my teammates, but I think it meant a little bit more to me because it was harder. And my path wasn't as clear as some of theirs. So when we stepped on that podium and received our gold medals for the first time, there was tears of joy, tears of relief, and probably the worst ever rendition of our national anthem. But for me, it just meant the world to me that I was able to be a part of that, because that was the year too, the first time ever that sports psychology played a big role for us. And we did a lot of stuff off the field, team building, from silly games at the end of practice with hula hoops to high ropes courses. And I'll tell you what, I got a fear of heights and falling, so that was not my forte, but because of joy, I got through jumping off a telephone pole, trying to grab onto a trapeze bar type thing. So that was really special for us. And it was the culmination of 16 sisters that, you know, mandatory bowling nights that you had to dress up themed and stuff that's out of my comfort zone. You know, Brandy loved it. And just all the fun memories and stuff that really happened. And, you know, I have people that after those Olympics were like, you know, you said you were going to be in the Olympics and you said it with such conviction when you were younger. I didn't want to be the one to tell you you're crazy. And I'm thankful I didn't. So you're going to have people along the way that are going to say your dream's silly or it's crazy or it's not possible. But you have to have those dreams. And you have to be willing to make the sacrifices. You have to be willing to adapt to changes. And you got to work hard. And most importantly, you have to enjoy the way. You have to find the passion, whatever it is. And for some of you guys on this call, it may not be soccer, and that's okay. But whatever your passion is, you need to embrace that. And you need to hold on to that with every ounce of you, because when you face that adversity, and it's coming, trust me, it's coming. When you face that adversity, if you don't have that passion for what it is you're doing, you're not going to be able to push yourself through that adversity. That's when you kind of say, yeah, okay, maybe it's not meant to be, and walk away. But if you have that passion, do like I did, turn getting cut into pissing you off and wanting to prove them wrong. You know, and credit to Tony, even numerous times before he passed away just recently, he said that was one of my biggest mistakes as a coach, you know, and he owned it, and, you know, made it even more special, our relationship, you know, because we could joke about it, but it's not going to be easy, but if it was easy, then everyone would do it.
Yeah. Okay, Hatham, I'm looking here, we have about 29 questions in queue.
I know, I keep talking so much. I'm sorry.
No, this is good. This is good.
Shannon, I'm going to pepper you with some quick speed round answers here.
Oh boy. Okay. Hit me.
First of all, you've got a shout out from Dixon Hills, New York. Somebody's mom played there.
Love it. Hello,
family.
Dixon Hills. Smithtown, how's that bowl?
I think you just answered the question about, do you ever feel like giving up?
Many times, but I had that passion and that energy. Like I said, someone tells me no, or you're not good enough, instead of believing them, I work twice as hard to prove them wrong. And it doesn't always happen, but I at least go down swinging.
There you go. What's your juggling record?
Last time I juggled, I think it was 5,845. But that was last week.
Fantastic.
I don't know.
How did you stay calm and focused in pressure situations like a penalty kick?
Yeah, you know, I think a lot of that was our sports psychology. And one of the things she always talked to us about is having your focus go from being a flashlight where it's a big wide beam to honing in and becoming that laser beam. So we did a lot of stuff with the mental game. You know, in fairness, it's just, we trained so hard and did so much work that when it became time to play, we knew we were ready. And, you know, when you first walk out and there's 90 some odd thousand people, it sucks the air out of you, but you find your family, you wave, and you just get focused, and you don't really hear the crowd as much as you would think. And it's just a part of knowing that I've done everything I can to prepare and I'm ready, and believing in that.
Who's your favorite player now?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I absolutely love Heath. I love Julie Ertz. You know, I was the number 8 my playing days, and my son now says he's the new 8 in this household. So he's also a big Julie Ertz fan because he's a Philadelphia Eagles fan. But I think she's one of those that just, she's a bit underrated because she's just consistent. She's like the Christine Lilly, where you know what you're going to get from her day in and day out. It doesn't always necessarily get you the glitz and the glamour. And obviously Rapinoe, when she gets that ball, you know, you kind of get to the edge of your seat. Her and Heath, I think, are similar of, you know, what are they going to do? What magic, what Meg? And, you know, I have a soft spot for people that love to nutmeg. So that's why they rise on my list too.
How did you develop that powerful shot of yours?
You know, I get asked that all the time too. And it's not necessarily like, you know, doing extra squats or leg lifts or anything like that. You know, it's just the technique. And, you know, the balls we played with at that level are like $200 balls, and, you know, they knuckle a little bit. I used to, you know, Bri used to hate getting behind those because it knuckles and twists and whatnot. But it's just striking it well. And I think it's just the consistency of taking that time after practice to work on free kicks and hitting and doing finishing over and over, and just the repetition.
What is some advice you would tell your younger self?
Oh, I think the biggest thing for me, and it's not to say I didn't enjoy it, but it would be to exhale a little bit more and take a moment to look around, because I played for 12 years. I was a part of 3 Olympics and 2 World Cups, and it went like that. And I think about it, I'm like, wow, that was 12 years of my life, and it seems like just a little glimpse. You know, so I think for me, I definitely enjoyed every moment of it, but it went so fast. I just wish, you know, I took maybe a little extra time here and there, because you get so caught up in the grind of, here's your ticket, go here, do that, you know, just really kind of just exhaling and enjoying it to another level.
Well, and now you've kind of come full circle, and you're a coach and an executive director of a soccer club. One of the questions we got, which was interesting, was what's the difference in leadership traits as a player versus a coach?
You know, what's funny is that people always say, you're so nice. I'm like, man, what kind of persona did I put out on the field? Because, you know, it's just who I am, you know? But I think what's important for me is that my ego's not involved when I'm a coach. I think it comes from the fact that soccer was so good to me. I mean, not even talking about medals or anything like that. The fact that it helped me learn the life lessons that I've learned. It helped me get a college education. So for me, it's not about my ego. It's about helping these kids learn and grow. And I never once in the thousands and thousands of games, thousands and thousands of halves played a perfect half or a perfect game. So I don't expect that from my players. What I'm more focused on is how do you react to that? Do you put your head down and now the team's playing down for 5 minutes? Or do you, work hard to get that ball back within 30 seconds? And if you do the same mistake 10 times, we're going to talk about, maybe try something different. But I want my players to go out and have the freedom to just play. One of the things I loved about Clive was he barely talked during a game. And we're talking Division I collegiate, Final Four teams. And he always said, he's like, my job's to prepare you. I'm going to coach you all week, and then game day is my time to enjoy it, to sit back and enjoy. And that's what I try to instill with my players. I want them to be free out there. I don't want them to make a mistake and look to the sideline and see who's, cringing or yelling. I don't want to be telling them, who to pass to, who's open, what to do. They got to figure that out. Those are all things and tools that, again, are going to help them off the field. So it's just about empowering my players to just play free and enjoy the game.
Did you know when you were a player, did you think you were ever going to become a coach?
No. In fact, during school, I stayed up in Portland and, painted dorm rooms and ran summer camps. And at that point I was like, "Ooh, I am not cut out to be a coach." But I think that was just my immaturity of it and not realizing to the level that soccer was really going to take care of me, beyond everything. So I wasn't ready to be a coach, but in fairness to those camps were more of like the babysitting camps, not really being able to teach good little players. So I had no idea.
And it sounds like, through all your successes, you keep talking about your teammates and your experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And so how do you instill that in your players and not talk about the wins and losses as much as more about the journey?
Yeah, I do a lot of team building stuff too. We do goal setting as a team before season. We do things, just as simple as, tape a piece of paper to everyone's back, and then you go around and write a positive message on your teammates, anonymous, and then they keep that in their bag. So when they're having one of those rough days, they can pull it out and look at, what everyone said about them. Setting up time, the last 10 minutes, even if it's, two groups holding a circle, can you juggle down the field and back type thing, those kinds of things that brings out an element of fun. And what you'll learn in all those little team building things is someone like Joy Fawcett, who steady as they come and quiet, but when it came to team building, you wanted her on your side because she always had the answer to the puzzle and how to figure it out. And those are the loud personalities that are like, do this, they're not always right. And more often than not, they're not even close to being right. It's those that are studying it. And so bringing out those personalities, because they're the more quiet ones on the field, but what they're going to bring. So especially for girls, we are unique beasts. And I say this often, guys, you guys could be arguing and fighting with each other. The ball's rolled out and you're like, let's go play, let's go win. Girls, we tend to be a little bit more emotional. And if Louise is, made me upset, ball's rolled out, and I'm going to tell my friends, don't pass to her because she just did this or that, and you get these little fractions. And I could say it because I'm part of it. We're unique beasts like that, but you love us. So, that's where that team building on the girls' side is really, really important to know that when you step across that line, you have to have respect for each other. Off the field, you don't have to all be best friends. You don't have to all go to the same party and the same sleepover or talk or whatever it is. But when that ball's rolled out, there has to be a respect. And that's what creates a good team and a good chemistry. And when that ball's rolled out, you will do anything for your teammate, but you're not necessarily the best of friends, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So
before I hand it off to Louise, I'll just pepper you with a few more questions.
All right, hit me.
Favorite game you played in?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Just one answer? Gosh, that's tough. I would have to go with, oh man, I'm going to throw it back to my college Final Four final game. We lost. It's the one thing that kind of still cripples me is that I wasn't able to help Clive Charles get his first national championship. The joke with him was that when I came to Portland, the girls program had never even been in the playoffs. My first year, my freshman year, we made it the first round. My sophomore year, we made it the second round. My junior year, we made it all the way to the Final Four. That's how small the tournament was back then. And by my senior year, you know, we made it to the final. So he always joked, you needed a fifth year. We could have done it. So actually, one of my favorite pictures is him hugging me after that game because I felt so devastated that I couldn't get that man his championship. So it's one of my favorite, but also one of my toughest ones too.
What was your biggest setback growing up?
Oof.
Tough one.
Yeah, you guys are killing me. You're gonna try to make me cry. Is this the point to these peppers? I didn't have the most supportive family. I was that kid who was always looking for a ride to practice. Would, you know, basically Friday after school find a teammate that I could hang out with all weekend. My parents weren't very present. You know, actually when I went off to University of Portland, I took a Greyhound bus from Escondido, California up to Portland, Oregon. It was 29 hours on Interstate 5, stopping at every little town in between. And I bought that ticket, $69 one way. It was a special I saw on the news on TV 2 weeks before when I'm like, how am I getting to Portland? And they were like, I don't know. So went up to Portland with about 120 bucks in my pocket, a steamer trunk, and 2 backpacks, and just left. And so not having that environment, like I said, soccer was a release for me. It was the time to just go play. And really, I even beyond paying for education, all that stuff, I don't know where I would be without the game as a youth player.
Awesome. And finally, Real Madrid or Barcelona?
Real.
Very good. Did you hear that, Watson? This has been an honor for me. Thank you so much, and I'll turn it over to Louise.
Yes,
Thanks for having me.
I'm sitting here listening to these stories, and I think the one thought that comes to my mind that I've been pondering here is, so 99 ended, and we were all fortunate to have a man by the name of John Hendricks come up with a vision to create the first women's professional league in the United States. Both Clyde and I were really fortunate to be a part of the Washington Freedom. That's where I first met him. And
I won't hold that against you.
Yeah, really. No,
I'm kidding.
It's 20 years. Where is the time gone, right?
Yeah, I know.
And I remember we hosted that opening game at RFK Stadium. It was the Freedom against the Cyber Rays. It was the Mia versus Brandy game. 32,000 people, I think, were at that opening game. I remember, as you had mentioned about watching the Olympics as a kid, you know, I'm obviously not 17 anymore, but we had a black and white TV in our little house in Pittsburgh. And my brother and I would literally be glued to the television, particularly the Summer Olympics. And I remember watching Donna DeVerona win a gold medal,
Yes.
which was 17 years old.
Donna D, yes.
Right, so here we are at RFK Stadium, and Julie Foudy had actually introduced me to Donna back in 90, maybe 98. And of course, you know, I was like, oh my gosh, who would have ever thought? But at that game, Donna introduced me to Billie Jean King. And it was like, here I am, a kid coming from a blue collar neighborhood in Pittsburgh, suddenly meeting these incredible athletes that I idolized as a young kid. It was overwhelming. But that game and that league, the WUSA, was for me probably the most memorable part and time of my life in the women's game. What are your thoughts about what that league did for women's soccer globally 20 years later?
Yeah, again, it's one of those pivotal moments in time that I was so blessed and fortunate to be a part of. and what they did was the 99ers, we were founding members. And so they asked us, put down your top 3 venues where you would want to play, and we'll do our best to get you within your top 2, but ideally your top 3. And I remember Foudy, Joy, and I, because we're all Southern California girls, were like, San Diego, San Diego, San Diego. And that's what the 3 of us turned in. And we're like, there's a snowball chance, and what, of us getting that. And somehow all 3 of us ended up there. And the fact to be playing professional soccer in my hometown was just tremendous. And, the first sense of really kind of feeling like a pro, because it offered so many opportunities to players that were just missing out on the national team for lack of an opportunity. You look at someone like Shannon Box, who without the WSA, she wouldn't have had the national team career that she had. You think of the NWSL, and McCall Zerboni gets called into the US team, so it's amazing, because we've always prided ourselves on being about the good of the game, and knowing that, while it only lasted 3 years, there were lessons learned for the second round and lessons from that for the current NWSL that, have helped it hopefully be successful. And it's great to see these young women having a place to play outside of college. Hopefully, we're able to build the league and be able to pay the players a bit more, so that they're able to play longer than the 1 or 2 years that majority of them do. But, I think anytime you can give opportunity for people to go out and showcase who they are and what they do, and a chance to say, especially in your hometown, that you were part of the first professional sport, is just, it's like being in college without the classwork. It was phenomenal. We had so much fun because it was the first time, and none of us knew what it was about or what we were doing. It was just such a great group of young women that we got to play with, and again, offer opportunity to others.
Yeah, it was quite the experience. For 3 years, when I drove Interstate 295 to get to RFK Stadium, there was not a day in those 3 years where I didn't look forward to going to the game. And every time we would host a game and I would step out on that field, there was such an adrenaline rush just to be a part of history. So, thank you for all that you've given to the game, to the kids, and what you're still doing as an executive director running a club. I'm so thrilled that you joined us this evening. It's been a long time since we've had this opportunity. And I'm going to close and ask you a final question. What would you like to leave us with tonight?
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you to all of you guys. And Louise, like I said, you are a true pioneer, my friend. So I'm so grateful for having met you many, many, many years ago, and love the fact that you and Clyde, who I know has been around more than a day, we won't say how old, but what you guys are doing. So it was an absolute honor. And, when Louise asked me, I'm like, absolutely anything for you. So thank you for having me. What I'd love to leave you with is just, have a dream, you guys. Figure out what your passion is, and it could change as time goes on, but figure out what it is that makes you uniquely you, and what you just find yourself drawn to and what you love. And it could be something in academics, it could be a sport, whatever it is, music, whatever it is, find that, figure it out, hold on to it, and don't let anyone tell you it's silly, you're not good enough, or this, that, or the other. Have that passion, and work hard. Be willing to make those sacrifices, and most importantly, you have to enjoy it, because if you're not having fun, it's not going to be worth it. So I wish you guys all the best, especially our future pilot. You are going to absolutely love life up on that bluff. I'm so grateful that Portland hired Michelle French, and she's turned that program back to the focus on what it was many, many years ago. I'm proud of her. I sit on the alumni board, and we're going to be working on things to continue to build that program. So whatever it is for you guys, man, enjoy it. I know it's late there. You're probably past dinner time, but I appreciate you guys taking the time to listen in, and for all the great questions, and good luck to everybody. Stay safe and stay healthy.
Thanks, Mac. Thanks for joining.
Thank you very much.
All of our
Take
kids.
care.
Thanks for being a part of this.
Absolutely. Take care, guys.
Take care. See ya.
Bye.